Hello, my name is Dylan, but you can call me Buttercup. Welcome to Buttercup's Fascinations. Today, I don't quite have yarn to talk about, but I would like to talk about Dracula. This edition, I noticed it in a bookstore and it was just beautiful. I think these are supposed to be garlic flowers. I think I've shown it before. But this edition is so pretty. I just had to use it for the visual. So I'm kind of reading Dracula twice this year, and I read it last year as well. This year I am reading Dracula Daily again, which is a Substack which sends Dracula as it happens, because Dracula is epistolary, so it's told in letters and diary entries. You can see, it's a letter, and each letter and diary entry has a date. And Dracula Daily took all those dates and put everything in chronological order and emails it out in that chronological order. And so you get to read the story of Dracula as it happens to the characters. And I really enjoyed it last year. It increased the suspense of the story. It made it a lot easier to empathize with the characters and the kind of dread and tension that they were feeling. Definitely not the way it was intended to be read by Bram Stoker, but it, I feel, really enhances the way the story unfolds, and really enhances, the characters themselves. The beginning of the book, Jonathan Harker is in Dracula's castle for a lot longer than he was supposed to be, and getting to read about that in real time as it happens, as opposed to just all in order, potentially pretty quickly, depending on how fast of a reader you are, really enhances his experience, and going sometimes weeks at a time without hearing from him really kind of drives home, oh, this is terrifying for him. This is horrific. So I really appreciate it for that reason. And this year, in addition to Dracula Daily, I am listening to Dracula, which is a podcast basically doing the same thing as Dracula Daily, but with a fully voiced cast. Ben Galpin voices Jonathan Harker, and he's fantastic. In addition to the way that Dracula Daily kind of ups the tension by having it be chronological, hearing voices for the characters, hearing their emotions out loud, it makes it another layer of incredible. And so I'm really, really enjoying it for that reason. And the story as a whole is really, really fascinating, and I prefer the book version of the story over most of the movie adaptations. The movie adaptations change a lot of things, change some of the characters in ways that I think do those characters a disservice. In particular, Lucy and Mina really get the short end of the stick in most adaptations of Dracula. I apologize if you can hear my computer fighting for its life in the background. I'm not sure why it's doing that. But regardless, Lucy Westenra and Mina Murray really generally get the short end of the stick in Dracula adaptations. Lucy gets turned into like a wanton harlot almost, and she's really not. She's a fairly innocent girl trying to do her best, trying to make the best choices she can, who is a victim of Dracula. And you know, she's a people pleaser. She gets upset that she has to turn two men down when they propose marriage. She gets, like, she's so distraught at it, not because, you know, she's this like promiscuous person, not that that's a bad thing, but you know, she's upset about it not because she is promiscuous, but because she wants everyone to be happy. She wants all three of the men who propose to her in the book to be happy. And I think it really does her a disservice when adaptations, you know, kind of take that in bad faith and twist it in this way. And it really takes away the tragedy of what happens to her. In a way, it feels to me like adaptations like to blame Lucy for what happens to her. And I don't know, I find that kind of upsetting. Because it really is a tragedy. It really is this horrible thing that happens to her. And to flatten it the way a lot of adaptations like to, just, again, it does her a disservice. And same thing with Mina. There's at least one adaptation that kind of makes her Dracula's reincarnated bride or true love or something like that, or, you know, makes her fall in love with Dracula. And again, that does her a disservice. Mina is loyal and loving and so smart, and to make her just to reduce her story to revolving around Dracula. I think my camera's falling, so apologies. But to reduce her story to just revolving around Dracula is, again, a disservice to her, in my opinion. And, you know, I just, reading the original, I think, makes it clear the way that these characters are misportrayed and done disservices to. Now, I'm not saying Dracula is perfect. It has fairly period-typical anti-Semitism, anti-Romanism. Dracula is pretty directly a xenophobic, anti-Semitic stereotype. And unfortunately, that is a thing that a lot of adaptations keep. Is Dracula being a pretty anti-Semitic, xenophobic stereotype, and I wish they wouldn't. But that reflects the anxieties of the time, the anxieties of the society that Bram Stoker was a part of. It reflects, the attitudes that Bram Stoker was exposed to and believed in and shared in at the time. And it's a really interesting window into, okay, how were people like Bram Stoker thinking of people in these parts of the world, thinking of what was happening in society. Horror in general reflects the anxieties of the people making it and the societies in which they live. And Dracula is a part of that tradition. Dracula really, really reflects the way that, Victorian England at the time was thinking. And so it's really interesting from that perspective. It's also really interesting from the perspective of, putting on rainbow goggles. A lot of Dracula and Jonathan's interactions can be seen as homoerotic, and because of the attitudes and whatnot of the time, that is portrayed as part of the horror. But it also is reflective potentially of Bram Stoker himself, of things that he secretly desired, but knew that he couldn't express directly, or what have you. It's also really easy to read into Mina and Lucy's friendship in that kind of way. Again, we're getting into unintended readings on Bram Stoker's part, but once the work is published, it's kind of out of the author's hands, in my opinion. So, there's a popular kind of humorous reading of the main characters of Dracula as a polycule that I think is really fun. But just overall, I enjoy Dracula. I think it's useful to read. I think it's interesting to read. I think it's fun to read. And Dracula Daily is being published as a physical book as well, so if you want to read it that way when that comes out, you can. So I like Dracula. If you haven't read it, read Dracula or Dracula Daily would be really good ways to get into it, I think. So, yeah. I'm really enjoying reading Dracula again and again. So, I think that's all that I have for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.